So just finished our big read aloud. And the truth is, last month, February, was Black History Month. And I meant to read some books from that, but I didn't want to interrupt our Nestor Lopez book. So I held off. So before launching into another big long read, I think for a week or so until spring break, I'll just read short stories like picture books. And with the truth is with Black History Month, it seems like teachers always do the same people over and over again. Martin Luther King, very important person, very important to American history, but you guys have heard a lot about him. And you've heard probably quite a bit about, the man who invented the peanut grinder thing, Carver, and all sorts of people like that. And so I wanted to do some heroes of American history who are lesser known. So I'm starting with a woman, and she was a very famous singer. Her name was Marian Anderson, I think. And there's a book about her here and how she was able to transcend the racism of the times and become one of the most famous singers of all time. So I think she was an opera singer. So we're going to read this book. It's called When Marian Sang, the True Recital of Marian Anderson, The Voice of a Century. And here's the cover. It's kind of got a beautiful cover. It won the Robert Sibbert Honor Book. It's by Pam Munoz Ryan. It starts with, "It was her range of notes that caused all the commotion. With one breath, she sounded like rain, sprinkling high notes in the morning sun, and with the next, she was thunder, resounding deep in a dark sky." And maybe at the end, we can listen to Marian Anderson sing a bit. No one was surprised that Marian loved to sing. After all, she listened to her father singing in the morning as he dressed. Mother often hummed while she worked in the kitchen. Sometimes Marian and her little sisters, Ethel May and Elise, sang songs all afternoon. Let's see, let us break bread together on our knees. These are the songs. I don't actually know the tune to the song. Let us break bread together on our knees. When I fall on my knees with my face to the rising sun, O Lord, have mercy on me. However, although everyone sang, her voice was distinct, strong and velvety, and able to climb more than 24 notes, so she had a huge range. Everyone wanted to hear Marian sing. There she is singing. I'm going to actually spotlight my camera so that when we record it, you'll be able to see it better. Pin to first screen. There we go. Okay. Alexander Robinson, the choir director at the Union Baptist Church in South Philadelphia, wanted to hear Marian sing even though she was not quite 8 years old and sometimes sang too loud. He asked her to perform a duet with her friend Viola Johnson. As Viola sang the high part and Marian sang the low, their harmony blended like a silk braid. Dear to the heart of the shepherd, dear are the sheep of his fold. Dear is the love that he gives them, dearer than silver and gold. Sorry, I need to make somebody who could be my person to allow people in so I can stop interrupting. Do I have a volunteer who'll let people in? Amadi or Liam or Vivi? Vivi, great. So Vivi, I'm going to make you co-host and then you can just admit people. Don't admit anyone that you don't know though, please. Thank you for helping. That way I don't have to interrupt. Okay, great. Okay, so we have Marian. We're singing a book about reading a book about Marian Anderson, very famous African-American singer, known as one of the greatest singers of all time, who you probably haven't heard of. Church folks started whispering and followed with out-and-out talking about Marian's remarkable gift. Neighboring churches heard the news and invited Marian to perform. One advertisement said, "Come and hear the baby contralto, 10 years old," and people came. So she started singing in church. When Marian sang, it was often with her eyes closed, as if finding the music within. So you can see her in the picture. She's the one with her eyes closed. Audiences heard not only words, but feelings too. Spirited worship, tender affection, and nothing short of joy. She was chosen for the celebrated People's Chorus, 100 voices from all the Black churches in Philadelphia. She was one of the youngest members and had to stand on a chair so those in the back could see the pride of South Philadelphia. Her father was proud too, but protective. He didn't want anyone taking advantage of his child. Father's love made Marian feel important. When he died after an injury at the Reading terminal where he sold ice, tragedy filled Marian's heart and sometimes her songs. They have her songs. I wish I knew how to sing them, but I don't. Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Oh, oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? So she was singing church music, gospel music. Mother was happy for Marian's success, but reminded her that no matter what, she has to study and take a little extra time and do it well. Marian didn't need extra encouragement when it came to singing. She practiced her part of the song and often learned all the other parts too. For her, music was a serious business, and more than anything, she hoped someday to go to music school. Church members promised tuition for our Marian if she was accepted. Since Father's death, Marian had to work at odd jobs and sang in concert programs in order to help support her family. It wasn't until 1915, when Marian was 18, that she finally went to a music school and patiently waited in line for an application. But the girl behind the counter helped everyone except Marian. Was she invisible? I think you guys know what's going to come next, don't you? Finally, the girl said, and I'm sorry for the wording here, but people used to speak really in a racist way. She said, "We don't take colored." That's what they called people who had dark skin. Her voice sounded like a steel door clanking shut. Oh, makes me so mad. I guess Marian's going to show them. Marian knew about prejudice. She had seen the trolley drive past her family as they stood at the corner. She knew that her people were always the last to be helped in a store, but she could not understand how anyone who was surrounded by the spirit and beauty of music could be so narrow-minded. She felt sick in her stomach and in her heart. Didn't they know that her skin was different, but her feelings were the same? Couldn't she be a professional singer if she was Black? With unwavering faith, Mother told her that there would be another way to accomplish what would have been done at that school. Marian believed her mother. She took voice lessons in her own neighborhood, continued with the choir, and sometimes performed at Negro churches and colleges. When Marian saw a Metropolitan Opera performance of the tragic opera Madame Butterfly, thoughts of a formal music education came again to mind. How wonderful it would be to sing on a grand stage, set out a dramatic role, and wear beautiful costumes. The passionate music inspired her, and she was determined to study, but opera was simply the sun and the moon, a dream that seemed too far away to reach. He's got the wind and the rain in his hands. This one I know. He's got the sun and the moon in his hands. He's got the wind and the rain in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. As a young woman in her 20s, Marian was invited to many states to sing. Sometimes she traveled with her accompanist, that's the person who plays the piano, by train, where they were seated in the dirty and crowded Jim Crow car reserved for Negroes. And you see the sign. Back then, they had separate drinking fountains, separate places in the bus and the cars. Ridiculous, horrible. Or two segregated groups, whites in the best seat and blacks in the balcony. Many times she was welcomed enthusiastically by her audiences, and then could not get to a hotel room because she was dark-skinned. No matter what humiliations she endured, Marian sang her heart with dignity. Her voice left audiences weeping in a hushed awe, or as they strained to hold on to the memory of every opulent note. When Israel was in Egypt's land, let my people go. Pressed so hard they could not stand, let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. These are all very famous songs. Marian still wanted to advance her singing with master teachers. With the help of friends, she was granted an audition with the fierce yet famous Giuseppe Boghetti. When she arrived at his studio, Mr. Boghetti announced he didn't have time or room for new students. Too afraid even to look at him, Marian took a deep breath. Slowly, with great emotion, she sang, "Deep River, my home is over Jordan. Deep river, Lord, I want to cross over into campground. Don't you want to go to that gospel feast, that promised land where all is peace? Oh, deep river, Lord, I want to cross over into campground. Marian finally lifted her eyes. I will make room for you right away, said Mr. Bogetti. And I will need only 2 years with you. After that, you will be able to go anywhere and sing for anybody. So she impressed him. Again, Marian's devoted church community raised the money for her lessons. Marian worked hard with Mr. Bogetti, and sometimes for practice, she sang scenes from Italian operas with him. Her recitals now included German songs too, but other languages troubled her. She didn't want simply to sing beautiful words like Dunkel wie dunkel in Wald und ein Feld. She wanted to know what the words meant. Dark, how dark in the woods and the fields. That was German. Other Negro singers had gone overseas to develop their voices and learn foreign languages. Why not her? After all, Europe was different. There she would be able to sing to mixed audiences and travel without the restrictions put on her people in America. So things in Europe were a little less prejudiced at that point. Marian needed to grow, and Mother agreed. A bundle of worry and excitement, Marian boarded the Île-de-France in October 1927. She had never been so far from her family. She knew her sisters would take good care of Mother, but still she already felt homesick. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. This is the song I want to find her singing. This song is beautiful. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child a long ways from home, a long ways from home. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone a long ways from home, a long ways from home. Marian studied and was eventually invited to perform in concert halls across Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark. The enthusiasm for her singing was so overwhelming that one newspaper in Sweden called it Marian fever. Audiences applauded in London, cheered in Paris, and pounded on the stage for more in Russia. In Austria, the world-famous conductor, Arturo Toscanini, announced that what he had heard, one was privileged to hear only once in 100 years. Marian felt as if she had finally achieved some success. She asked Mother if there was anything she wanted that would make her happy, because now Marian could afford to buy it for her. Mother said that all she wanted was for God to hold Marian in the highest of his hands. It seemed as if she was already there. Mr. Bogetti had been right. She could go anywhere and sing for anyone. Until she came home to the United States. Oh, why are we so dumb, right? Ugh, let Louise in here. There we go. In 1939, Howard University in Washington, D.C., which is a traditionally Black university, booked a concert with Marian Anderson and began looking for an auditorium big enough to hold the audience she attracted. They decided the 4,000-seat Constitution Hall would be perfect, but the manager of the hall said it wasn't available, and in fact, no other dates were free, with their white performers only policy. Marian's agent wrote to the hall manager pointing out that Marian Anderson was one of the greatest living singers of our time, but it did no good. Enraged fans, super angry, wrote letters to the newspaper. In protest, Eleanor Roosevelt, the wife of the president, resigned from the organization that sponsored Constitution Hall. Howard University then tried to reserve a large high school auditorium from an all-white school. Again, they were denied. Now teachers were angry and marched in support of Marian in front of the Board of Education in Washington, D.C. It was a boiling pot about to spill over. This is 1939, so this is quite a long time ago, before the Civil Rights Movement. Wasn't there some place in our own country's capital where Marian Anderson's voice could be heard? Committees formed and held meetings. Finally, with President Roosevelt's approval, the Department of the Interior of the United States invited Marian to sing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. on Easter Sunday. Her country was offering her a momentous invitation, but she had concerns. Would people protest? Was it dangerous? Would anyone come? Examining her heart, Marian realized that although she was a singer first and foremost, she had also become a symbol to her people, and she wanted to make it easier for those who followed her. So she said yes, even though she was afraid. She stood in the shadow of the statue of Lincoln, waiting to be called out. She read the engraved words, "This nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom." Marian looked out on a river of 75,000 people. Her heart beat wildly. Would she be able to sing one note? She took a deep breath and felt the power of her audience's goodwill surge toward her. Marian's sisters were there and her mother too. She stood straight and tall, then she closed her eyes and sang, "My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, let freedom ring." A roaring cheer followed every song. At the end of the program, the people pleaded for more. When she began her thought-provoking encore, "Nobody knows the trouble I see. Nobody knows my sorrow." Silence settled on the multitudes. Oh, look at the crowd. Amazing. I've never even heard about this. For almost 16 years after the Lincoln Memorial performance, Marian sang for kings and queens and presidents and prime ministers, famous composers and conductors. She received medals, awards, honorary degrees for her magnificent voice. But there was still one place Marian had not sung. When she was finally invited, a dream came true. Marian wondered how people would react. No Black singer had ever done such a thing. She would be the first. But she did not need to worry. After she signed the contract, someone said, "Welcome home." On opening night, excitement charged the air. As Marian waited in the wings, the orchestra began. Her stomach fluttered. She walked onto the grand stage. Trembling, she straightened her costume and waited for the pounding music to be heard. Tonight was her debut with the Metropolitan Opera. At long last, she had reached the sun and the moon. She finally got invited to be in the opera. And Marian sang, look, she's in Madame Butterfly, I think. Not sure about that. I don't know that much about opera. And then this has all sorts of information about the research the author did for this nonfiction picture book about this very famous singer and the pictures and all of that. And right now, what I'd love to do is find you guys a nice YouTube of Marian singing, Marian Anderson, and let's watch it for a minute. She's going to sound kind of formal because she's not a modern day singer. Marian Anderson singing. Maybe they have, oh, that's not it. Wow, that's my channel. Marian Anderson singing YouTube. Let's find her. Here we go. Marian Anderson sings at the Lincoln Memorial. Here she is at the Lincoln Memorial. Maybe. Real picture of the real.
Genius draws no color line. And so it is fitting that Marian Anderson should raise her voice in tribute to the noble Lincoln, whom mankind will ever honor. Miss Marian Anderson.
Okay, I'm going to play another one of her. Just you guys can go back and watch what you want to watch, but I want to get her singing something a little less formal. Marian Anderson, nobody knows the troubles. Let's see if we can get that. So this will just be the music. Well, it was a different time. I don't know if you appreciate her voice, but she did have an amazing voice, and she